We're having waffles like kings today. Fresh raspberries. And it's about 170 grams of raspberries per waffle. James is having 3 waffles there, so I gave him 3 of these.
Yeah, I won't eat them all at the same time.
The halves, right? And we had a little bit of egg in the waffle because I wasn't thinking. I made waffles for the dogs, and I could have put it in there, but the egg in there. But I wanted to give some egg to this little guy who I've covered up just so he can stay a little warmer. And because now he's had 3 poops. He just had 1 after I gave him a little bit of egg this morning. We I wanted to give him egg because I thought, well, he'll probably be able to handle it.
We don't know what to feed him,
and
like we don't know what sort of bird he is or whatever.
But I mean, birds live off the yolk sac when they're in the egg, and so anyway.
So this is another bird's egg. It's not a reptile egg or something like that. So
little Cecil here ate some egg today.
Or Cecilia.
Yeah, we don't know.
Cecil or Cecilia is feminine. It's Latin for blind, as I recall.
So I'm gonna try to give a little more egg to this bird.
Yeah.
And
so, you saw this bird yesterday if you tuned in. You 1 or 2 people that watch us. And we thought this bird was a goner. Well, we talked about how, it probably will die of infection. We've had a case like this before, a bird that had its eye pecked out. This has had his eyes pounded more than pecked out. But
did you hear little Cecil?
Blind.
Cecil now makes noise.
Yeah, so he's got hearing.
Yeah.
He can hear you coming along downstairs, and he'll say, he'll start cheeping. Here I am. So he even, I was able to keep him hydrated last night. I wake up once every 2 hours. I take some chemo, and I even was able to give him a little bit of water. It's like every 2 hours. And he was more cooperative and stuff like that. So I'm worried about infection now. But if there's no infection, I think he'll recover.
There we go.
And he's a real fighter. He was fighting me off. When I picked him up, he thought I was just another crow. He wouldn't have known. Wouldn't have been able to see. And I just, to be perfectly frank,
he's drinking it now.
I wasn't sure if he was alive. Actually, when I was a few feet away, I thought the crows had been pecking at a piece of garbage. That's how much he'd been beaten up.
That's okay, Cecil.
Oh yeah,
See?
Look at him.
He likes the egg.
Eating it.
Yeah.
I sure hope he makes it. But at least we've made, if he dies, we've made his last few hours or whatever.
There we go.
Or days.
Just a little at a
passable.
time.
Yeah. So you found this thing for the food.
Well,
I don't know where you found it.
I had it in the dishwasher.
Oh, okay.
I had to clean it out since last time.
There he goes.
That's all I'm going to give him for now. Because that's quite a bit for a little tiny Cecil.
Yeah. When Pauline first saw him, when I picked him in, she couldn't bear to look.
No, I couldn't. It was devastating.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
So
there we go.
No, we're giving him a fighting chance. So he's probably going to die.
It's little Cecil?
Yeah. But, give yourself a fighting chance. If you've got something like cancer, or if don't give up on someone if they've got something like cancer. When I was first diagnosed with cancer, it was 2010. It was 2011, I should say, and it was the 15th of July. So that was 10 years and 4 days. You know, I should have been celebrating the anniversary of that diagnosis. Why would I celebrate something like that? That's awful. Because when they diagnosed me, they said with chemo, very mild chemo, Velcade it's called, you've got 18 months to live. Wow, you know, 18 months to live, and that was 2011. So they were giving me somewhere into early 2013 or something like that, probably a little bit after New Year's or somewhere around Christmas. And I'm working on overtime. It's the kind of overtime you like. Like life to a large extent is work, you know. So I'm working on overtime, but it's I'm not saying it's wonderful. My back's been bothering me a lot because the doctors caught it so late. I've got 5 fractured vertebrae, multiple myeloma. They were horrible brutes, 10 of them. The 11th one was not a horrible brute. He was a civilized individual. He's from a Boer, actually, from South Africa, a refugee from that horrible system that they've got there now, set up by Nelson Mandela and his flunkies. Zuma, I gather they arrested him. I don't know what for. It could be for any variety of things. And, of course, Canada has stopped taking doctor refugees from South Africa. It's not just whites. I know of one black doctor, a very effective doctor who managed to save a guy who had cancer of the colon. The guy had gone to a regular doctor, some flunky doctor that had got through the Canadian system. And the guy I'm talking about had blood in his stools, as the doctors say. And the doctor said, "Oh, it's nothing." So luckily enough, this guy went and got a second opinion. The second opinion came from a guy who's now working in Calgary. But he was a doctor who'd been trained in South Africa, and he'd left South Africa. He's black. And he just said, "We're testing you right away." And they tested him. Sure enough, he had colon cancer. How effective was this doctor? Every case I've ever heard of, run across, personally, of someone with colon cancer, it's 4th stage. That's about as terminal as you can get. It's not as bad as pancreatic cancer, but it's pretty close, from what I can gather. They caught it 1st stage. 1st stage, they yarded out a bunch of his intestine. I don't know what all else. Probably just the intestine and the colon. And you know, when I ran across him, you know, like what I did was what everyone says. You know, you'll say, "I've got cancer," and they'll say, "I'm so sorry." And I'm lucky because I'll say, "Don't feel sorry. I'm smiling." You're probably wondering why I'm smiling, because I'm not beating cancer. I've been running away, beating him off, kind of like. But it's still there, but and it's going to get me eventually. But so far, I've been able to do the Roadrunner with it. It's a Wile E. Coyote. But this guy, I said, "I was so sorry." And he said, "Don't," you know, like, he said he was cured. And I said, "What?" And I said, "How long's it been?" And he said, he'd even lost track. You know, like, I remember the exact date I was diagnosed, so on and so forth. You keep the, kind of like the anniversaries and so on and so forth. He said it's been something like 17 or 18 years. He'd lost track. So they'd managed to get all of it out of his intestine. I mean, that's, to a large extent, the only way you can cure this stuff is actually getting it, and getting it all. I mean, with me, all they can use is chemo. Now I'm getting monoclonal antibodies, which they tell me really isn't chemo. It's something different. It was approved in 2018 in the United States by the FDA or something like that. And it probably was approved a little bit later in Canada here, we tend to follow the American lead in any variety of things. If you're Canadian, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're American, you probably don't have much of a clue about where Canada even is. But that's the way it goes. Americans aren't even good at their own geography. Well, but Canadians really aren't that good about their own geography or American geography or any sort of
geography. That is not fair.
So, about what?
Americans. To generalize.
Well, I'm saying the same thing about Canadians.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, on average, people in North America are often, people most places in the world, I mean, you go to a lot of places, like Egypt, where writing was co-invented, along with the Iraq, Mesopotamia, whatever you want to call it. And the last time I checked, hopefully the stats have gotten a little bit better, a whole lot better, 72% literacy. That's where writing was co-invented. And, like, you get Edward Said saying, oh, you get people in the what used to be called the Orient, and they know more about the Occident. The Occident knows about the Orient because they have to deal with Coke, like Coca-Cola. What? I wish Edward Said were alive in here. I'd just laugh in his face. It would be like Edith Prickly's laugh. Edith Prickly from... Maybe it wouldn't even be that. What stupidity when you got people who are, you get these high levels of illiteracy. Anything more than 1% or 2%.
I brought out the syrup for you if you want it. I don't know if you need it with raspberry syrup.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Inexcusable nowadays, especially in a place like Egypt, where they've had this long 5,000 years or so, the Egyptologists tell us, definitely 4,500 years of writing. How long have the English had writing? It would be charitable to say 1,500 years. So that's 1/3 of the time. Anyway, don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your relatives or your friends. You just never ever can tell. The only people that seemed to thought I was going to get a remission were me and the other person on the screen here, Pauline. And I'm not sure about Pauline's sister and mom. They were so wonderful, helping me out, helping me build up the strength. The doctors were telling Pauline, feed him. So I'd lost something like 60 pounds. And you need nutrition to proper nutrition.
Yeah, he couldn't get in to the stem cell until I got his weight up.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't have survived it, they said. So I had to pound the fat into him somehow, and so honestly, I fed him mostly Hungry Man meals.
Well, Pauline was working. So she'd come back.
They were very
in the afternoons.
Very good at my work. They allowed me to go back to feed him. Like my sister would feed him in the morning while I was gone. So I'd be there until about, 6:30 or something.
Yeah.
And then my sister would come at, 10 or something?
10 o'clock.
And then my work let me come back for my second break. So
what was it, 2 o'clock or something?
Something like that. Maybe 1:30. I don't know what it was. Yeah. And so then after work I'd come, and maybe I got back around, 3:30 or something? I'm not sure. So anyway, it was a lot of work.
Yeah, so Pauline's sister would turn up around 10 o'clock, and at that point in time, because my back was so bad, it still is not good, but it was bad then. I was getting back spasms every time I turned over in bed, and that's aside from hitting the washroom, that's all I was. I was just in bed. And I had to motivate around with a walker. So they had me on. I wouldn't do it again because it really didn't help with that.
And
back pain. They had me on hydromorphone or something like that.
Yeah,
And
that was awful.
I'm going to make that clear in case anyone's looking to scoping out this place or something like that.
Not on it now.
Not on it now. Okay? So, yeah, don't get any big ideas.
But,
or little
wow,
ideas.
yeah, it was...
Big ideas.
I don't know, like, we had home care coming in, and he was, at the time, terminal, so it was, like, the most that home care would do kind of thing. It was the high-level care, and they do nothing.
One woman twice gave me
you a shower.
an enema.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Where's that? They'll give you a shower. And they put this, like, strap thing on you, which, how could they... What did
it
that
was
even
just
do?
to cover their behinds. Yeah, exactly right. I was afraid I was going to fall down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you get a back spasm, it kind of pitches you backwards. And I've got 5 fractured vertebrae. If I'd fallen down,
so the healthcare
I'd be in
system,
a wheelchair probably.
They'll, here in Canada anyway, they'll provide, when you're terminal like that and you're caring for your loved one at home, because they won't do it, they'll provide different things that you need. Like, say, if you need a walker, or if you need, at the time when he was in the hospital, he had a bed that he had a button that could lift him up, so it would help get him up, because he didn't have the energy or ability to get up on his own, right? And
well, it was a challenge. I never used it because I was afraid of it, but
yeah.
You had to struggle to get hold of that. Maybe I did.
You used it. You used it every time. And anyway, so...
Yeah, maybe I did.
You did.
No.
So, they were wanting to boot him out of the hospital, like, within a week after diagnosis.
So you addicts of Michel Foucault, listen to this, okay?
So he couldn't get out of bed on his own. And he had just been throwing up at the sight of water. Like, he couldn't even keep that down. So they were giving him something, and he was...
Well, that was before they put me on dexamethasone.
Yeah, and
they put me on dexamethasone.
Then he was eating and stuff again.
Oh, I was eating like crazy.
Yeah.
I was there 14 days. And I put on 15 pounds. And I don't exaggerate about numbers. I was there exactly 14 days. Or parts of 14 days.
So what I told
I put on 15
the nurse who was trying to boot him out, I don't know what that nurse is called. Well, my aunt, she works in the hospital there still, and she came, and she like I was saying, they want to kick him out. How am I going to care for him, right? And she said, don't let him. Don't let him kick him out. So, like, you have to agree to it. You have to sign, Yeah. And so I told the discharge nurse, I told her flat out, I said, he can't get out of bed on his own, and I'm working all day, and who's going to care for him, kind of thing. He needs a hospital bed so that he can get out of bed, just so that he can go to the washroom, even if he has a walker or something. And he needs to be able to get out of bed somehow, and he needs that electronic. So anyway, they got him a hospital bed.
I used the one in the hospital.
And so they had to keep him there until they got him the hospital bed set up at
It was a real clunker.
Place.
It looked as though it was issued in 1940.
They shipped it, I think, from Calgary something for him to Grand Park.
It looked like it was 40s issue. It was nothing like the thing they had in the hospital.
So, and then the woman said, well, like, I said, I can't care for him. There's no one to care for him. We work, and she said, hire a Filipino.
She actually said that.
She said that. And I'm like, I said, with what money? I work as a labor, like, or whatever I was doing, I think at the time, weed inspector. And, anyway,
you would have made $20,000 a year.
Yeah. And I said to her, you know what? I'm not married to him. I have no responsibility for him. And then her attitude changed because she realized, oh, the government's going to have to, somehow the healthcare system is going to have to care for him if he has nobody to care for him. So then the hospital bed came, and then home care was set up, you know, to take care of him, which they do nothing. They come in, what's your pain level?
Yeah, that's right. It's through the roof, and it got worse when you turned up.
But they'll wrap a strap around you so that you can have a shower. And I made sure that they did. I didn't give him his showers. They did. Because they will do pretty much nothing. So whatever you can manage to convince them to do, get them to do it.
So, Michel Foucault, I alluded to him. You know, like all you addicts of Foucault. You know, he's talking about prisons. He's talking about various institutions, modern-day institutions. How, I guess, awful they are. Because he compares them to prisons, schools. You know, that's about as profound as, we don't need no education. You know, thanks, Roger Waters. We don't need no thought control. It's something that's going to, some 18-year-old's going to thrill to that. You know, 18-year-old guy. You know, when you get beyond that, people pay for the privilege of going to university, a continuation of education. In the United States, last time I checked 20 years ago, it was pretty well de rigueur for it to be like $30,000 a year. That's just tuition. There'll be books and room and board or whatever thrown on top of that. So people pay for it. Education is a privilege. Now, the way they set it up by times is pretty skunky. Same sort of thing with hospitals, or a similar thing. The way things set up are pretty skunky. But they're not like prisons. We were begging, basically, to let me stay. And that's a little bit different from a prison. No. I'm resorting to rhetoric. Understatement. It's a whole lot. It's just 180 degrees different from a prison. So all you addicts of Michel Foucault, get with the program. The guy was a full ghost. He was a false
right now,
lefty.
I mean, I personally believe that people should homeschool their kids and put in the time. You know, there should be at least like one parent at home with the child at all times. There should only be 2 children, because otherwise you can't give them enough valuable attention. And you increase the world's population of humans, which we don't need. So anyway, but I firmly believe in that. And right now, we're worrying about whether education is going to be available for people. And
hands-on education or whatever because of COVID, right?
And there's, so the public education system is threatened. And people are being encouraged to live in like multi-generation sort of housing, so take care of your own elderly. But the thing is, if like they're trying to get through daycare, what is it? Daycare for everyone or whatever?
Universal daycare?
Yeah, something like that.
Call it.
Don't know what they call it. But anyway, they're trying to get that through, and I used to believe in that. But then I realized that people need to actually take care of their own children. The system doesn't do... If you look at the foster care system as an example...
Oh, it's awful.
How does that work out compared to people who actually care for their own children? I mean, you have to have something like that in place when people can't care for their own. And, you know, in case of emergency sort of thing, if a child is being abused, whatever, you got to deal with it. Society should handle that sort of thing. But
they take on too many people. I know one kid who was neglected neglect's not the same thing as abuse. You know, I'm sure there are lots of people who go, oh, it's abuse.
Yeah. And then he ended up abused.
Get control of your rhetoric. System. Oh, my heavens.
Very badly.
When he was tracked down, here's what the social worker said. It's almost, she was social. The rest of them, I'm afraid, were antisocial. So she said she'd never seen a case where there'd been worse abuse. Yeah. She didn't use the word abuse.
Within the foster care system. So he should have been left with his parents.
He was a foster child. Well, not his parents. What had happened with his mom had deserted his dad and him. Yeah. And his mom said, you know, when they took him away from the little guy away from his dad, they went to her and they said, do you want to take care of him? No. She was the type of person that was pinching him. She was caught pinching him. Horrible person. So that was when she was still around. It was better that she'd be gone. Pinching, that's abuse, right? At any rate, and she said, no, there's no one in his family that would take care of him. And yet his grandparents would have taken that little kid on in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And
they didn't ask. They didn't ask the father's side of the family, even though he was the one left caring for the little guy. The woman had abandoned them. Didn't ask the father's side of the family.
And she just said, no, there's no one. What would she know? They would have taken care of him in a heartbeat and done a wonderful job. But instead, he gets into the healthcare system, ends up, he's like a jailbird. Foster.
It's terrible. They ruined his life. They ruined this little guy. Sad. But so that's the public system for you. I mean, you can't,
handsome little guy.
But at the same time, I mean, you can't really rely on everybody to take care of their elderly, especially when you've set up the system so that parents haven't taken care of their own children. What is going to motivate a child to give their parent, their elderly parent, proper care when they've been essentially raised by the public system through daycare and school and whatever? They're not going to have that familial bond, perhaps, with their parent in order to give them the proper care. So
the important thing is, of course, what happens the first 3 or 6 years. But you know, like if we extended Michel Foucault's analysis to daycare centers, you know, they'd be evil, like, or to the foster care system, the social welfare system for abused or neglected or just kids that are orphaned or whatever. Oh, that would be evil. Those would be evil systems. But no. That's part of faux gauche. Faux gauche. The faux gauche agenda. You know, get those things.
I don't know that. I don't think that universal daycare is actually the answer. I think
it has to be available.
It has to be available for people, but I think that people should have the option of, and people should actually be encouraged to, say, like a group of mothers get together and they say, okay, well, I'm going to take the children on Tuesday or whatever, and so they're caring for a few children, and there's maybe